So if you clicked on this video because you thought I'd be here to give you some definitive answers on the future of Erik Karlsson with or without the San Jose Sharks, yeah, that's not exactly going to happen here because that is such a very confidential and complicated process, something I'm not on the inside of, not many people are. And if you thought I had these answers and I was really going to give them to you via YouTube, yeah, that's not exactly how it was going to go either. So what I'm hoping to do here in this video is kind of lay out the bigger picture and what we think is at play regarding the future of these two parties, the Sharks and Erik Karlsson. Let's begin with his recent tweet saying, "Thank you to the entire San Jose Sharks organization, fans, and especially teammates. It was a great run that ended too early, but lots of great memories were created. The entire Bay Area has been nothing but classy and respectful to me and my family. Thank you." Now, so many fans saw this as an instant goodbye via social media. I did not interpret his tweet as a farewell to San Jose at all. In fact, the way I saw it was a rather genuine thank you to the Bay Area fans without any extra promises or implications one way or another. You understand this is such a tricky but a procedural experience for any athlete with an expiring contract. They have to be very careful about what they say, when they say it, how they say it, including tweets to fans. All he really wanted to do was say thank you without getting into the business side of it, but so many people interpreted that. Let's get into Karlsson's season. Now, the regular and postseason combined, I used to divide it into thirds, but now because he played 19 playoff games, I'm doing it in quarters. So the first quarter was all about acclimation. In his first 20 games with San Jose, it really was about adjusting and trying to fit in, and maybe it was not stepping on anybody else's toes that just made the process more difficult for number 65. Here's a multiple Norris Trophy winner that just didn't do much in the first 20 games, unfortunately. 10 points, all of them were assists, and he had a -9 rating. It just didn't start off well between the Sharks and Karlsson. But then he got hot. You could tell something started to click because the next quarter, it was all about success. And this is probably the period where San Jose as a team might have had their best stretch of the regular season, basically through the end of November, early December, all the way into about mid-January. In a span of 24 games, this second quarter, Karlsson tallied 33 points and was a +15 player. You could easily see he felt confident. He was part of San Jose's offense, and things were really starting to click. But then the third quarter of this season, in about mid-January, it just really went bad really fast. This is the injury portion of his season. Karlsson didn't play in any games from January 16th to February 16th. Now, at the time, we didn't fully know it was a groin injury, and yeah, the All-Star game was part of that month span off. But he came back. He tried to play a few times, and then there was that spill he took in Boston. Karlsson ended up not playing any more games from February 26th all the way till April 6th, which was the last game of the regular season. The Sharks effectively shut him down, knowing that they had a pretty comfortable cushion in the standings. They were going to make the playoffs, and they didn't want to risk Karlsson and that groin injury any further. They wanted to get him as healthy as they could for the postseason, but also give him that one last tune-up before the playoffs started. And that brings us to the fourth quarter of his season, all about the revival. Somehow, some way, knowing the type of injury that he was coming off of and knowing how long it had been since he played a bunch of games in a row, really, this fourth quarter was all about revival because in the playoffs, 19 games for Karlsson, he only missed the very last one against St. Louis where the Sharks were eliminated. But in 19 playoff games with San Jose, he recorded 16 points. And yeah, he was a -3, but he was a very effective player at times. And there were also other sequences, mostly in the Las Vegas series, where you could tell he didn't look the same, might have appeared a stride behind, but there were other portions where he did not look injured at all. He seemed to be getting stronger as the playoffs went longer. So again, 4 quarters of Karlsson's season almost cut and dry, 20, 20, 20, and 20, maybe more like 25 to be honest. But the trend of low times to high times, feeling great about his game, back down to low times with the injury. And then at the end, you'd have to say it was pretty good times in his revival, in his ability to contribute to this team. Again, with the groin injury in the Stanley Cup playoffs, it was pretty amazing. But you sum all that up together, and you'd have to say that Erik Karlsson's season, start to finish, his first with the Sharks, largely frustrating, largely disappointing. He only played in 53 regular season games, which was his fewest of any full NHL campaign. And again, I think the frustration factor, a lot of it goes back to joining a brand new team, wanting to and trying to make that excellent first impression. His reputation, preceded himself. Everybody knew what he was all about, and he just wasn't able to click immediately with his new team. And I don't mean off the ice. I'm just saying all statistical, all X's and O's, all on the ice. It just took some time. Okay, so that brings us now to what would Karlsson want with a brand new contract? I think you can narrow this down to pretty much two things with any athlete in his situation. This is not unique to Erik Karlsson. You're looking for the opportunity to win, and I don't just mean win a lot of games. I mean win the Stanley Cup. And the other thing you'd be looking for, I think, is the opportunity to earn fair market value. What does that mean? I don't know. It's a combination of what you see other players making, what your agent tells you you're worth, and quite honestly, what you're going to be happy taking home. I'll get to that in just a second. A lot of people feel like Karlsson, in relation to term and money, they peg him at 6 to 7 to maybe an 8-year deal. They also say 9, 10, 11, or even $12 million per season, which is crazy because like we just basically laid out, he's coming off one of his worst professional seasons, one of his most frustrating professional efforts, but yet there is still that track record. People know what Karlsson is all about. They saw what he was capable of this season. So I have no doubts that there are going to be some pretty lucrative offers thrown his way. But going back to salary, this is something a player or anybody who signs a professional contract has to live with. And when I say that, it sounds strange. You know he's going to be handsomely rewarded, but it has to be rewarding now, the day he signs it, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, maybe even 8 years from now. If at any point he starts exceeding the contract value that he signs, he's not going to be feeling so good about it. And he's going to compare what he makes to what other players make in 4 years who just signed a brand new deal. And now that the salary cap has gone up league-wide in a couple years, yeah, the circumstances and the situation changes. But again, this is not unique to Erik Karlsson or even professional athletes. It's the nature of signing a contract. You have to know when you sign it that you did the best you could, and it's going to keep you content for years to come. And also this for Erik Karlsson, you only get so many opportunities to test the free agent market. It's the way it works for a star player like this who is inevitably going to sign longer term deals. The fact that when it comes up, you know you're not going to get another crack at this, and Karlsson himself may not get another good look at free agency in his prime. So he really has to capitalize on this, and he owes himself the opportunity, even if he is set on San Jose. I'm just hypothetically saying that. Even if he was, don't you think it's worth it to just listen for a couple weeks? Maybe even almost a month, just listen to what everybody else is saying and knowing how your heart feels, but you just want to compare everything else to it that you're hearing. So I would totally understand Karlsson spending this time and the coming days and weeks just to do a lot of listening. So the question is, going back to those two things that we expect Karlsson wants, where can he get those two opportunities in the very same place, right? The chance to win a Stanley Cup and a team that can compensate him at fair market value. To me, when I look across the board with all the league's teams, there's only like maybe 10 or likely fewer that could accommodate both sides of those in a favorable way. Now, the Sharks have their own money questions and situations to figure out, including a couple unrestricted free agents like Joe Thornton, as well as the captain, Joe Pavelski. Not to mention the RFA, that is Timo Meier. Certainly he is due for a bit of a raise this offseason. And then also other unrestricted free agents like Jonas Donskoy and Gus Nyquist. And if you're not going to bring those two particular players back, you obviously do have to replace them and pay the players a similar salary of a comparable effort you would get from their replacements. Again, there's a lot going on here, and the question just goes back to this. Could San Jose even afford Erik Karlsson at that $10, $11, $12 million a year salary? I want to make this quick observation. A lot of other players that have signed in San Jose could have likely got more if they had tested the markets and gone elsewhere. Brent Burns, Marc-Edouard Vlasic, Logan Couture, even in the past when Joe Thornton was signing bigger deals. Patrick Marleau as well. I could go on and on, but there has been a trend of players offering up a bit of a hometown discount to stay in San Jose. You do kind of get the impression that if Karlsson wants to stay, that conversation might happen. If you want your team to be successful, you don't want to put them in a situation where they're locked into only you and they can't surround you with the type of teammates you want and need. So again, I'm not suggesting anybody do anything in particular, but the observation has been this is the way the Sharks operate, and you would have to think that kind of trend and a hometown discount would have to continue to some extent with Erik Karlsson. Just going back to the All-Star game, it was kind of a weird situation, unprecedented really, that a player would miss some time with injury before an All-Star weekend, participate in the actual All-Star 3-on-3 tournament, and then miss more games out of that weekend. Because usually if a player would come back for exhibition festivities like an All-Star weekend in any sport, basketball or baseball included, they're healthy enough to resume playing as soon as the break is over. But for Karlsson, yeah, it was a weird scenario. Made you wonder at the time, why would he participate in something that means nothing if he's hurt? And let's remember, at the time, we had no clue yet that this was a groin injury. A lot of people speculated maybe it was just a broken finger or part of a hand. And I'm saying something that he could play through in an exhibition situation, in an all-star situation where he wouldn't further injure himself. But to find out that it was a groin, I think all of this goes back to him making a statement to San Jose. He was elected into this position to be an all-star in San Jose, his team's hometown, still wanting to make a good impression with teammates, the ownership, fan base, coaches, with everybody, as many people as he could. He could have bailed out and said, guys, thank you for the honor, but I can't do it. Or maybe as time got closer, he just felt good, and then after the game, he didn't feel good again and missed some more time. I guess we'll never know, but it was a peculiar situation. I think, again, what we learned from that is that he had some connection. He had some feelings to San Jose. Don't you think if that All-Star game was in Denver or Madison Square Garden or you name an NHL city, somewhere, Minnesota, Chicago, wouldn't he have skipped out on that game because it would mean traveling and it wasn't in his home rink and he didn't have to kind of show up for his hometown fans? To me, I think that was all about a message, again, of appreciation by Karlsson. And I think that opens the door to kind of show you how he feels about San Jose. Again, that's the personal side. This is going to be a business decision, but that's out there. All right, two more things before I get to the conclusion. How about the change in Sharks franchise mindset from September when they acquired Karlsson to maybe now where there's, just about a month until free agency opens up? Back in September, you have to remember, San Jose gave up so much just for the opportunity to get Karlsson as a, quote, rental for the season. Chris Tierney, Dylan DeMello, bunch of draft picks, some prospects, basically all for one player, number 65. The thought back then was, well, if you can re-sign Karlsson for the long term, this deal looks like a steal. I think as the season went on in San Jose, the realization was apparent that this is going to be a big commitment by the San Jose Sharks. There's one player for more than a handful of years and maybe more millions than I have fingers on my hands. It's a big commitment. Do you want to take this $9, $10, $11, or $12 million and spread it out or spend it elsewhere? I'm not going to sit here and ever relate a human being to a material possession, but this is kind of like leasing a car, an expensive one, for a year. All right, you paid handsomely for it. The lease is up. Now it's time, if you want to buy the car and keep it essentially forever, you've really got to pay up. Otherwise, the lease is over. One party goes this way, other party goes the other way, and you can both move on respectively. That is this situation right now for San Jose. And I just feel like the magnitude of the circumstances, how much he'll command, how many years he's going to want. This is a serious deal for the Sharks. The good news is they got to explore everything that he was about, in fact, through the good times and the bad times this past season. And lastly, I would never pretend to jump in the mind of Erik Karlsson and understand what he's thinking or what he's processing in the brain, but you'd have to think that this past season was such a whirlwind considering how it all started. He got traded from Ottawa to San Jose the day before training camps opened. These were his first experiences playing in the NHL's Western Conference, his first full season playing in the United States. I think we can all agree the difference between the media market of Ottawa and that of San Jose are quite different. Now, whether it's something Karlsson enjoyed or he missed, only he really knows that. So in conclusion, I can see the Sharks being very happy to re-sign Erik Karlsson to a long-term deal so long as it fits in the bigger structure with other players included. Karlsson is a unique individual. He's a unique athlete. He's already made the adjustments to San Jose. Hopefully he feels comfortable here and also feels like this is a place that can give him individually and collectively a platform for success. But if he decides to go somewhere else, I can also see the Sharks taking the money they would have committed to Karlsson and putting it other places and finding great uses for it and getting a lot of talent in return. Look, Karlsson's going to have some other options out there. I have that instinctual feeling. And if the Sharks can't match it, they can do well with that money, like I said, in other places. It's just that there's no animosity here. Karlsson has handled this pretty much like an adult. There hasn't been a lot of speculation all season. He's kept it professional and quiet. And I think for the Sharks, they showcase themselves as best as possible. They put their best foot forward. And if Karlsson doesn't want to stay here, it's not anything the Sharks did wrong in that scenario. So again, I can see this happening both ways. But again, I don't feel a lot of animosity. I think both sides, in the long run, are going to be just fine.